All right, it's no secret that Payton Talbott is probably the most hyped up unranked prospect we have in the UFC to date. Just coming off a highlight reel KO over the French NPC bot Giannis Gamori in 20 seconds. And everyone's talking about this guy as a future champion. So I've laid out 3 potential paths to the title for Payton Talbott. I have the realistic path, which is full of fights that I think are realistic, that the UFC could actually book. The Pereira path, where they jump him up the rankings super quickly and get him to the title as quickly as possible. And I have the star power path that would build Payton Talbott's star power even higher than it already is. So a few rules for this video. We're going to be talking years into the future. So a lot of this is going to be completely impossible to predict. There's no telling who loses to who or who beats who, 3 years from now. There's no telling what fights get made. So the only thing that I'm going to set in stone is that O'Malley is still the champion in every single scenario. No one will beat O'Malley, just to keep things simple. And that's the fight everyone wants to see anyway, Talbot versus O'Malley. A lot of people are calling Talbot the real Sean O'Malley. So we're just going to keep O'Malley the champion in every scenario. But in some scenarios, I'll have this guy lose to that guy. And then the next scenario, I'll have him beat that guy instead of lose. So just mixing things around. Again, it's impossible to tell what happens years into the future. So if you have any complaints about, oh, this guy wouldn't be in the rankings, or, oh, this guy wouldn't beat that guy, I don't care. So save your complaining, don't care, and let's move on to the first path. And we're going to start with the realistic path. The first fighter on the realistic path is kind of a no-brainer. This is who Payton Talbott called out in the post-fight interview at UFC 303. It's Adrian Yanez. This is a realistic step up for Payton Talbott. Adrian Yanez is a guy that's just outside the rankings. His 2 losses are to guys inside the rankings, coming off a win over an NPC bot himself. So he doesn't quite deserve a step into the rankings yet. So put him against Talbot, and then the winner can get a ranked opponent. This is a very winnable fight for Payton Talbott, and that's what the UFC want. Adrian Yanez is a guy who is able to be chinned. He has very poor striking defense. Rob Font obliterated him, sent him to the Shadow Realm in round 1. Hands always down, especially in boxing range, which is where Payton Talbott is most dangerous. Yanez is very open to be hit. Highlight reel potential for Payton Talbott. I could see him flatlining Yanez as well, but it's also a dangerous fight because Yanez can crack and he can put your lights out. So it's not like Talbot would be going in there and fighting another bot. It'd be something you could actually look forward to. Like, this is, maybe Adrian Yanez can fraud check Payton Talbott, but I think Payton Talbot would win this fight. Yanez is just too open to be hit. But yeah, I think that's the first fight on the realistic path. Makes sense to me. Yanez wants it, Talbot wants it, so book that one. After he takes out Adrian Yanez, you got to put him in the rankings. So a guy just inside the rankings. Second fight on the path, I have Dominick Cruz. Where is Dominick Cruz? This guy hasn't fought since 2022. After his brutal KO loss to Chito Vera, we haven't seen this guy since. He's just squatting in the rankings. So give him to Payton Talbott. It's going to be another stand-up fight with a big name like Dominick Cruz, who just got KO'd by Marlon Vera. Payton Talbott can KO him. More highlight reel potential for Payton Talbott. And this is a fight that's very winnable, and it's also in the rankings. So this is an easy way to get Payton Talbott a number next to his name. He can go out there and beat old man Dominick Cruz, who hasn't fought since 2022 and was KO'd brutally in that fight. So long layoff, coming off a KO. I think this is a good fight for Payton Talbott to get in the rankings. This is a stepping stone fight. Use Dominick Cruz as a stepping stone for the young up-and-comer Payton Talbott to get a number next to his name. Now, this is where it gets a little hard because we're talking 2 fights into the future. Now we're looking 3 fights into the future. Who knows what happens inside the rankings during all of this? Who knows who wins, who loses, all of that. So it's a little hard to say. So for his third fight in the realistic path, I have Rob Font. Now, Rob Font will almost certainly fight in the meantime. I'm hearing rumblings about Kyler Phillips maybe, but I think Rob Font would be a good step up. After beating Dominick Cruz, Rob Font would probably be around 10, maybe 11 if he loses in the meantime. If he goes out there and wins, obviously he'd be a little higher. I think he's ranked like 8th right now, I want to say. But this would get Payton Talbott potentially into the top 10. It's going to be another stand-up fight with a boxer like Rob Font. He's not going to take the fight to the ground. But Rob Font would be tough because he's never been KO'd, ever. He has never been finished by KO, TKO. So if Payton Talbott can go out there and KO Rob Font, that would be a huge win for him. And it's possible. We saw Marlon Vera drop him multiple times. So he has potential to KO Rob Font for sure, but this will be a much bigger step up. He's kind of like a less powerful but more defensively sound Adrian Yanez, so it makes sense. This is a fight to get him in the top 10. Rob Font for his third fight on the path. So after he beats Rob Font, he's going to be sitting around 8, 9, 10, somewhere around that range, looking for a fight up the rankings, potentially into the top 5. And I have Marlon Chito Vera as his fourth fight in the realistic path. Marlon Chito Vera, another very winnable fight. I mean, he looked like a punching bag against Sean O'Malley. And Chito Vera is also a slow starter, so Payton Talbott could take advantage of that. But Marlon Vera is another guy who has a granite chin. He has never been KO'd, but unlike Rob Font, who we've seen dropped and we've seen hurt really badly, Marlon Vera has never, ever been dropped, I don't think. Unless maybe early in his career, but I'm not sure. But he took a lot of damage in that Sean O'Malley fight. Took a knee right to the face, did not get dropped. So absolute granite chin. And this could be, I'd like to see this as a main event, 5-round main event of a fight night maybe. And this would test his cardio, with a guy like Marlon Vera for 5 rounds, who's probably not going to get put away. Can he last 5 rounds with a guy like Marlon Vera walking him down and marching forward the entire time? Would be an interesting fight, but I think it's very winnable for Payton Talbott. Again, not a guy who's going to shoot takedowns. If Marlon Vera was going to shoot takedowns, he would have shot a takedown against Sean O'Malley. So I don't think Marlon Vera is going to wrestle. It's very clear he likes to strike. He doesn't want to take the fight to the ground. Maybe he'll start implementing that after Sean O'Malley absolutely embarrassed him. And it's interesting because I actually put out a poll the other day asking who people think would win with their current skill set right now, this day, fully healthy, full training camp, Marlon Vera or Payton Talbott. And an overwhelming majority think Payton Talbott would beat Marlon Vera in their current day form. So very interesting to think about. But yeah, I think this is very winnable for Payton Talbott, and I would like to see that to get him potentially into the top 5. And then the last fight in the realistic path before a title shot, I have Petr Yan. Petr Yan, I'm assuming, is probably going to be around the 1, 2, 3 rank at this point. So this would be potentially a number 1 contender fight. Petr Yan is going to be the first guy who is well-rounded that can mix in the grappling. To this point, Payton Talbott has been pushed up fighting strikers. So give him a guy like Petr Yan who can test him in the grappling. And like I said, people are calling Payton Talbott the real Sean O'Malley. So we could see how Payton Talbott does against a guy like Petr Yan. If he can go out there and beat Petr Yan convincingly, that would be a huge win for him. No one's really able to dominate Petr Yan unless you're Merab Dvalishvili. But then again, he used the wrestling. If he can go out there and embarrass Petr Yan in the striking, that would be something we have never seen before. But I mean, realistically, you can't avoid a tough fight if you're going to get to the title. We've seen the UFC give stars layups to move them up the rankings in the past. And that's pretty much what I've done up to this point. I think Marlon Vera is probably the easiest fight for Payton Talbott in the top of the rankings. But I mean, he's probably not going to get a title shot off of Marlon Vera. So you got to give him a test at some point. Petr Yan can be that. This gives him time to mature, get the experience in the cage, work on the wrestling a little bit, and become a more well-rounded fighter. And then by then, maybe he'll be ready to compete with a guy like Petr Yan. But yeah, after he beats Petr Yan, he would then fight Sean O'Malley for the title, obviously. And I think that's a realistic path for Payton Talbott to get to the title. Now we're going to move on to the Pereira path. Now the Pereira path, like I said earlier, this is where they want to jump Payton Talbott up as quickly as possible to the title. And the first fight I have on the Pereira path, there's going to be a familiar name, Dominick Cruz. Again, I already talked about Dominick Cruz and why this is a good fight for Payton Talbott. But just skip Adrian Yanez. There's no point in fighting Adrian Yanez. You can just jump Payton Talbott immediately into the rankings with a win over Dominick Cruz. Very winnable, highlight real potential. In his very next fight, he can be in the rankings. I think that one makes a lot of sense to push him to the title. But the next fight in the Pereira path is going to be a huge jump up, obviously, because it's the Pereira path. I have Corey Sandhagen. So he would be going from potentially ranked 13, 14, 12 maybe, to Corey Sandhagen. Now, in this scenario, this is potentially Corey Sandhagen coming off a loss to Umar Nurmagomedov. But I mean, this isn't going to be realistic. This is just how you get to the title as quickly as possible. And I think if Corey Sandhagen's coming off a loss to Umar Nurmagomedov, who knows who wins that fight? I don't really know. But if he does lose, maybe they could throw in Payton Talbott. Very unrealistic, but that's why we have the realistic path. So don't go complain. This is how you get him to the title as quickly as possible. You could give him a guy like Henry Cejudo, but then I don't think a win over Henry Cejudo gives you a title shot. I think a win over Corey Sandhagen could give you a title shot, especially if your name is Payton Talbott and the UFC want to push you as a star. And then after he beats Sandhagen, I think that earns him a title shot. That's the Pereira path, short and sweet. But let's move on to the final path, the star power path. This is the path that is going to build Payton Talbott as a star even more than he already is. And I think that starts with not fighting Adrian Yanez, instead fighting another guy who's just outside the rankings in Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt, big name. The casual fans know Cody Garbrandt. And if you go out there and KO Cody Garbrandt, who is KOable, you know, Cody Garbrandt doesn't have much of a chin left at this point in his career. So if Payton Talbott goes out there and KOs Cody Garbrandt, that will get a lot of the casual fans' attention. And it's also a former champion that he can have on his resume very early on in his career. And this would set him up for a shot inside the rankings against Dominick Cruz again. I don't have anything against Dominick Cruz, but he's just the perfect candidate for all of these paths. So if you take anything away from this video, it's that Payton Talbott is going to fight Dominick Cruz. Or at least he should. I think that's a fight they should make at some point. But yeah, Dominick Cruz, he can't escape Payton Talbott. No matter what, Payton Talbott's going to fight him, apparently. But again, this is another champion, another former champion to get on your resume. I don't know what else I can say about Dominick Cruz at this point. I've already put him on here twice. This is the third time. So where's Dominick Cruz? He hasn't fought since 2022. So he can go from Cody Garbrandt to beating the guy that Cody Garbrandt beat in Dominick Cruz. Get two former champions on his resume very early on in his career, and also get him in the rankings with a fairly safe fight. Then I think after he beats Dominick Cruz, you jump him up the rankings a little bit. Again, maybe this guy's coming off another loss in the meantime, slips a little bit in the rankings. I have Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo, another former champ, 3 back-to-back-to-back former champions on the resume. And this is a fight you can market as a striker versus grappler. But I think it's also very low risk for Payton Talbott, because at this point, Henry Cejudo is going to be even older than he already is. He's washed. But after Payton Talbott beats him, you can say, oh, he went out there and beat the Olympic gold medalist wrestler, Henry Cejudo. You know, you can market that as, oh, he beat a wrestler. And I think that's a very easy fight for him. Old, washed Henry Cejudo. He's not going to have much left in the tank at this point. And I think that could be an easy win, an easy legacy win for Payton Talbott. Yet another former champion on the resume, 3 in a row, with very little risk, in my opinion. And the final fight before a title shot in the star power path is Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, in this scenario, I'm assuming Umar goes and beats Sandhagen and then loses to O'Malley. So this would make him a top contender. And this would be a real test of the wrestling. You got a guy who would have 1 loss at this point in his career, and his name is Nurmagomedov. And if we're being honest, if you go out there and beat a Nurmagomedov, a lot of people are going to value that very highly, and they should. If he goes out there and beats Sandhagen, then this would be an impressive win. And his name is Nurmagomedov. And you can't lie, beating a Nurmagomedov catches a lot of people's eyes, especially in the casual fans. They'll see the name Nurmagomedov, and they'll see you potentially KO him stiff. That is a huge boost to your star power if you go out there and flatline KO a guy named Nurmagomedov. And then after he beats Umar, he would go and fight O'Malley for the title. And that is the star power path, and that's the final path that I have in this video. Those are 3 paths to the title for Payton Talbott. Let me know what you think. Do you think Payton Talbott is really a future champion? Do you think he'll get fraud checked? Do you think he could beat a guy in the top 5 right now today? I'm interested to hear what you guys think about Payton Talbott. A lot of people are talking about him. A lot of people are gassing him up. I don't know if he beats those guys high up in the rankings right now, but I think he's definitely future champion potential. Very fun guy to watch. I'm excited to watch his career. But yeah, let me know what you think, and I will see you next time.